Use of energy. Betrayed husband 50, WW46. 3 kids D5, D9, D12. WW had a 2-month PA, DD was in mid-August. Since then, it's been the usual gaslighting, blame shifting. Since DD I've been on the emotional roller coaster. I've come to recognize deep flaws in my WW that I've previously avoided and come to accept that D is almost certainly for the best. I'm far from perfect, and some of my behavior certainly contributed to weaknesses in our marriage. However, my WW's affair and subsequent behavior is intolerable, and I am concerned that further deterioration will not do us or our kids any good. My struggle is how to end it. WW has many B-cluster PD traits. I fear a full meltdown, breakdown, and the consequences it could have for the D process as well as for our kids. I know I can go on the offense and get a restraining order, but I am fearful for where that leads, not to mention the significant cost of psych evaluation, which I cannot afford. I'm equally concerned about a 50-50 custody arrangement where our kids must endure 50% of their time with a depressed, anxious mother with an undiagnosed PD. She's been in therapy for years, is presently on meds. Her mental health is not really a question, but she is highly functional, and the kids do love her. I've read Splitting and Beef and I'm playing the long game to get ready. Sometimes watching here and other places, different OP make it seem so clear, sound the alarms, expose the AP, OM, etc. that all sounds great. But I don't think that's necessarily the way to go with a high-conflict individual who might try to burn down the house or commit X. It might be good to hear from others with a high-conflict relationship. Did you find a way to crash on a runway or waterway and walk away, versus a nose-down explosion and smoking crater? The crux of the issue is WW's affair and remaining married for the kids, for the money, and to some extent for her health. As noted, it's been about 90 days since DD, so that's the context. In the meantime, the HB has been pretty good. We are both seeing IC, and we have a MC that has called WW on her lies once or twice. I don't view MC as a save the marriage process as much as a how to communicate with WW process that might pay a dividend whether we D or not. I've got the VAR, home security cams, etc. I'm in a two-way state, recording anyway. Been keeping a daily journal since July. 2 actually. 1 narrative. 1 itemized lists of activities without commentary. The first one is useful for me and sometimes my dialogue with my IC. The second one demonstrates that I provide a significant amount of care for our kids, if not the majority of care. Historically, WW was the primary care provider, but that's changed since Feb. Pandemic. I'm up at 5 a.m. every day to make breakfast for kids and I don't punch out until they are all in bed. WW sleeps in until 6:30 and she's Netflix and chill by 7 p.m. every night. The kids still perceive her to be the lead care provider, but perceptions are shifting. The youngest now says Daddy makes breakfast and the older 2 increasingly ask me for a variety of things they used to rely on WW to do. Discovery had all the classic signs: change in behavior, dress, drinks, phone, schedule, requests, etc. Affair was with the father of our youngest daughter's classmate. They met at pickups, drop-offs, then extended to get coffee. Then she banged him in the backseat of his SUV in a parking lot. Also, once at his house, when his wife was away. And once at our house when she orchestrated a time for me to take the kids out for the afternoon. She avoided a confession until confronted with video from our home security cam. Her sister and father found out after she called family for help after the second 911 call. Bro-in-law also knows. And one of her friends, total enabler and bad influence. I know that people who socialize with cheaters are more likely to cheat, and people who socialize with divorce are more likely to get divorced. WW's friend is a cheater and has 2 kids with a domestic partner that's always on the way out. I see all the red flags. She was diagnosed with clinical depression about 20 years ago and suffers from anxiety, low self-esteem. She meets a variety of criteria for some type of PD, could be borderline or possibly inverted narc. I don't pretend to be a pro or have the expertise to make a diagnosis. My 99 initially thought PTSD but has been coming around to my armchair diagnosis. Over the years she's mentioned X herself many times. I have consistently dismissed it as an emotional ploy and tried to support her ongoing work with her IC. Past trauma includes some X abuse as a teenager, although I am increasingly suspicious that there was more, like eating disorder. I do not think that she was calm or rational about the affair, and I think that part of the ongoing problem is that her AP bailed when he caught a whiff of obsessive, crazy. At various points over the past 3 months, she's been more attuned to the rejection from the AP than to dealing with the marriage. Along the way, I've come to think that I need to do to protect the kids, although it remains soul-crushing to think about all this. Splitting and some of the other lit on this topic make it clear that parallel parenting with WW will be challenging at best. Best advice so far has been to carefully take time to line up a solid case. I am naively attempting to get through the holidays for the sake of the kids. She's been with the same ineffective IC for 5 years. In fact, everything has become much worse during this time. Her psych recently added a new med, so hopefully someone is paying attention. There's another layer in this onion: finances. WW quit her job in a meltdown 2 years ago, and it's added a lot of financial stress. I've taken on significant debt, and now we're maxed out. Technically, we cannot afford to we both have supportive families, so it's possible to lean on them for help, but I am loath to do this. That said, I don't see how we can continue in the current state, so I am actively trying to line up money to put down a retainer. If I move to file first, I know that WW's family will help her. The thing that kills me is that if I do this, I am knowingly placing a huge burden on my in-laws, nearing retirement, and effectively asking someone else to take on what should be my, or our, responsibility. If the deal plays out the way my prospective addie describes, the debt will be divided equally. It will take time to resolve, but I'll end up with a lower debt burden, independently of how alimony and child support plays out. Let's assume 50-50 custody and minimal alimony. My unemployed WW will not be able to afford to keep the house and mortgage. If we go all the way to trial, we'll be told to sell the house and distribute equity 50/50. We just moved last year, another contributing factor to all this, so equity is not huge, about 20%, and after fees, etc., will help to pay down some but not all of the debt. It would be good if one of us could keep the house so that the kids have some continuity, but she can't afford it, and I don't want to remain in the place that she brought the OM for a booty call, although I could suck it up for some period of time. I suppose I could keep the house and trade equity for debt, so that her debt burden would be lower and mine would remain higher. She'd still need to lean heavily on her family to set up a new place, particularly if she's still unemployed. I'm a bit overwhelmed between the betrayal, the constant emotional drain, the financial pressure, and the uncertainty of the path ahead. I know I need to move toward ending this, but the financial aspect, I cannot even put down a retainer, is a real stumbling block. I am horrified by the prospect of doing this solo without an addie. WW would still get help from family to hire an attorney, and I'd be at a real disadvantage when it comes to protecting the kids. Tonight, I discovered that WW has met or is planning to meet an anonymous man for bonding during the day. I pre-qualified for a personal loan. Hopefully it will come through next week and I can put down a retainer and proceed to D. I have not confronted her. I need to get everything lined up. At this point, I need to focus on practical legal strategies to protect myself and the kids. I'll try to speak with the attorney tomorrow. We were both tested after DD1 and came back clean. I can't be 100% sure that she hasn't traded fluids with another OM. I'm not aware, but chances are low, and from what I can determine, this new partner is new, possibly just today. We haven't been intimate since last week. Hopefully dodge that bullet, but we'll get tested again. My comment: it's smart to protect yourself and your kids' interests, even if it eats the little home equity you have. You are not in a situation where you're going to be able to plan a straightforward exit path that you can see ahead of time how it's going to work out. You may have to choose to walk forward despite many uncertainties and trust yourself to figure out a way to make it work as you go. That's not my preferred approach to life and tends to keep me stuck in one place in certain situations. Other people find it easier to take leaps. Story 2. I'm 24, my wife is 30. We've separated 6 months ago after being together for 6 years and married for 3. I've tried to communicate with her while separated on and off without being overwhelming. She wasn't interested. We since haven't communicated the past 3 months. A bit of backstory on the whole thing and how we got here. I'm originally from the Bahamas. She is from Pennsylvania. We met down in the Bahamas where I'm from as she was on vacation. We ended up dating for 3 years and then getting married. We were married for 3 years. We ended up moving from the Bahamas to Florida because the job required her to move back to the US. In Florida, we were doing fine as we knew no one. Their life was pretty smooth. We got 2 new dogs, had a cute house with yard, and made a few new friends. About a year of living in Florida, she got another job opportunity from her boss at a previous company who she was very friendly with, and it was a very large pay increase, but it required us to move back to Pennsylvania where she is from, so I supported her and said let do as she said she really wanted to give this a try. So, I packed the house in Florida up and loaded a truck all by myself and drove to PA. It was a 16 hours drive, stopping for fuel only. We ended up moving into an apartment, which was nice. I got a job in construction and she started with this new job. For about 8 months of living up her, everything was going well. We'd spend time with her family, she introduced me to her friends, etc. We wouldn't fight, maybe a slight difference on a few things, but never a battle. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, one day she just started going out running around and would come home late sometimes. I called her as I was confused and concerned and wanted to make sure she didn't get in a car accident or something. She would freak out and say I'm being needy. I knew something was up, so I investigated a bit and ended up finding her at a bar which was very far from where we lived, about an hour. She was there with an old boyfriend of hers. I confronted her. I asked her to talk with me in my truck as I had my dogs with me, and I went for a long walk with them because this was driving me nuts. She went off on me, tell me she is going to call the cops and that I should leave. I waited a few minutes to see if she would calm down, but she went missing. She ended up hopping a fence on the side of the bar and disappeared. So, I left and went home. She never came home that evening. So, I asked her where she was. She wouldn't say I knew the guy who she was with, so I said, "You were with Mike?" And she said, "Yeah, I slept on his couch." I called bull crap. A few days later she said, "I think we should separate." I asked to maybe try counseling and tried to ask her why she was feeling this way, etc. She told me she doesn't love me anymore, she's not attracted to me anymore, and that she was a divorce. So, I cried a bit. I was very upset and ended up moving back home. She now, from what I understand, isn't with that guy but found another guy through friends she knows. I recently came back to Pa to collect some of my personal, which I told an ET of when I was coming, but not an exact date. I ended up collecting my things while she was on vacation with friends and other man. She found out I was here to get my stuff, so she called me and yelled that I didn't tell her when I was exactly showing up and that I should stay away from her friends and family, and was very mean to me. I've always took care of her to my best abilities. We've traveled, we do fun things together, and I'd do anything for her within reason. We were also just about to buy a house before we separated, and I had planned out all the renovations and priced most of the things out. I'm not sure where I went wrong with her, but it hurts to lose someone you loved and sacrificed so much for and watch her become so cold. I think maybe she feels she's at a different stage in her life, possibly, but I am very mature for my age, and we were always on par with everything. I don't act my age at all, and I have a hard time getting along with people my age. We don't have kids, but we do have 2 dogs, which I let her keep because I didn't want to upset her. I did purpose marriage counseling to her, and she wasn't interested and said it was a waste of time. She also left me with very little money and doesn't want to split our assets fairly. I've recently consulted a lawyer and moving towards the direction of divorce. She had told me that she had filed, but I looked more into that she had not. So, I'm unsure what her thought process was there. But she put a few things of mine in a box and said that the divorce papers were in there with the engagement ring. Neither was in the box, but the engagement ring was in our bedroom. It does hurt a lot. It is very emotionally draining to go through losing your best friend and my dogs that I loved dearly, the other half of my family. We do so much together. I loved her unconditionally in every shape, way, and form. I just want to make sure I'm on the right track, as this isn't a position I saw myself getting into, and I'm unsure that I'm making the right decision. She also uses to be angry with me as I got off of work earlier than her, and I would come home and ask her if she'd want to spend time with me and the dogs and go for a walk. She will tell me she was busy, which I understood, but I always asked if I should wait until she was done work and get something done around the house. Her response would be to go by myself. Just making sure I'm not the crazy one in this situation, but from reading the other users' advice it doesn't seem so. She also said before I left that I had no friends, blah blah, as I was focused on working, and I fixed a few things before I left to go home, and she said all the things I did for her didn't mean much of anything. I didn't think that was very nice, as all seemed like she became a different person once she was home and on her stomping grounds. I've consulted with a lawyer. I am in the process of applying for divorce. I have spoken with her parents previously. I haven't spoken to any of her friends. I was close. Maybe in the future once I serve her, I will speak with them and her parents, but at this point I just plan to serve her without warning and move forward from there once I put some fire under her ass so she will understand there are consequences for your actions. She's a beautiful girl, so I suppose she always had her way. If definitely say she's a narcissist and thinks she's always right. Maybe this will be an eye-opener for her. When I spoke to her parents before I left, they said she has done this to her previously, to her last 2 boyfriends, as I'm her first marriage. Her parents did mention to me that one of the previous guys put a down payment on a house and she left him too. For what reason I'm not sure. These are definitely red flags that I hadn't knew of before. I suppose we moved along pretty quickly in our relationship. I thought I knew her pretty well. I used to travel back and forward with her to Pa before we moved here, so this wasn't a completely new world for me at all. I had met her family and friends before we married, not all of them of course. I suppose she is happy within her inner self, and until she finds that she will never be happy no matter who she is with and what she has. I shouldn't settle to be the pick-me guy at all. I'm a good-looking guy. I'm in shape. This was my first marriage. I suppose, too nice of a guy. I have spoken with my lawyer regarding the dogs and obtaining them. As for something being off, there isn't any information I haven't given, and I'm unsure what else I could provide. I am a boat captain in the Bahamas, and I was more well established there than I was here, as I wasn't here for very long and was more focused on getting established here before getting toys. We did still have fun, go jet skiing, snowboarding, dirt biking. Maybe I wasn't the fun, exciting guy I used to be. I am unsure myself. Maybe she felt she wanted a more well-established guy, as she's 30 and I'm a bit younger than her. Her friends from here obviously were established, as they lived here their whole life. Her cousin also is separated from her husband, and she would spend a lot of time with her as well. Maybe she is a part of it. Her cousin did say to her when we're getting married not to marry me to her, which I later found out. Not sure why. Maybe she was jealous. As for picking a woman like that, she kind of picked me. On vacation we met and had fun. It was my birthday a few days later, and she showed up and said she was at the airport. Can I pick her up? I said sure. Picked her up and had a good time for the few days she was there. She left. We talked every day. Then she ended up asking if she could move down there with me. I liked her a lot. We got along well and had fun together. I enjoyed her company, so I said yes. We lived there for just about 3 years until we moved back to the US. I wish I would have known what I knew now. Definitely a lesson learned. It's been a roller coaster ride for me with this whole thing. I've learned a lot and I'm still learning. I'm in the process of disconnecting with her fully and moving on. She will be served shortly as I have given my lawyer all of the information needed. That should be a large weight off my shoulders as I really didn't want to do this, but I had to. It's been very emotional as I really loved, cared about her, still having a tough time letting all of those things go even after all she put me through. As stupid as that may sound, I miss having a companion, a wife and a family. But I know there's well to come and soon all of this stress and worry will be over. Spoke to so friends that know my wife doesn't know I know these people, and they said she wasn't very nice to them when they went over to say hi. She looked them up and down and acted like a brat and didn't say anything. Shaking my head, she's very judgmental, I suppose. You'd think at 30 she wouldn't act like she's 16. Being separated from her, on the way to divorce. I also have a feeling that she married me to prove a point to the guy I initially caught her with, that someone, I, would marry her. But I think he said he didn't want anything to do with her after her probably slammed her a few times, so she went and found this other guy to make her feel better. I'm sure karma will bite her in the butt sooner than later. Sad to say these things about STBXW, but it is what it is. Must face the reality of it. I mean, it all started when I was riding my ATV on the beach behind our house and she approached me and I was chilling with my friends and some other girls I had met. I suppose I was a good catch. I mean, I had raced cars, boats, and motorcycles. I'm an exciting guy. Yes, at 18. I have been a boat captain for 7 years now. Me and some friends started a boat tour company which is top 5 in Bahamas today. Lawyer recommended to file for spousal support and force wife to file for divorce. Should I take his advice or should I file for both at the same time? Wife kept all funds in bank accounts and vehicles, had to start from scratch. I have tried numerous times in moderation to speak with her on fixing our problem and what led her to feel this way, and she has no interest to even speak with me about it. She never gave me a reason why she's felt this way or anything. I'm just lost for reason. I honestly think what hurt me the most was losing my dogs, although I do care about my wife as well. I spoke to them through the door when I picked up my personal items, and that broke my heart the most. Update: wife was served today. Not exactly sure how to feel about it. Court date is set for the 12th of next month. Kind of nervous about the whole situation. Makes me have anxiety. Hopefully all goes well. Not something I wanted to do, but something I had to do. Another update: as I believe I said previously, my wife has been served. A few days later, as I was traveling, she called me up asking me what I wanted from the whole situation, etc. I told her exactly how it was and was very firm with her. She proceeded to say that it was all my fault and tried to manipulate the situation and say it was all my fault, that I wanted this, which I didn't. Told me that I'm screwing her over and all this crazy stuff. She decided to make things up that weren't true. She even went as far as saying for me to move back in, and I agreed to, and she quickly changed her mind when I said okay. The convo went back and forth for a while with her trying to say things that weren't true and irrelevant. I don't particularly understand what her purpose was aside from her trying to get something out of me that isn't true to use against me, and when I wouldn't fork up any information, she quickly hung up the phone all angry in a huff and puff. I don't understand how someone can have so much hatred and be so hurtful with their word choice to someone they used to adore, someone who used to take very good care of her. Court date is coming up shortly and I'm anxious for the results. She has since drained all bank accounts and put them in overdraft, which is very silly. She's, I suppose, trying to screw me over as best as possible when I have done nothing to screw her over aside from serving her, which I suppose she didn't exactly expect me to do. She also, I believe, has been trying to sign into my bank accounts and social medias as I've had to change the passwords again because accounts have been locked. She's just trying to make my life living hell. Okay, so I've been going throughout the whole divorce process for a while now. It has been temporarily put on hold due to lockdown. I'm having second thoughts on the lawyer's advice as far as going after my wife for alimony. In my heart, it's not exactly what I want to do and still not sure what to do. I was on a trip to Florida when my wife called me and asked to talk after she was served. The convo went back and forth about what I wanted, and a lot of it I wasn't comfortable talking over the phone about. She also basically made it seem like all this was my fault and I was the bad guy in the situation, that I actually obtained a lawyer after months of being lied to and her telling me she filed for divorce, which she didn't. I was slightly hot-headed when we spoke and told her about her bottom and what she had been doing, and that I knew exactly what her sleeve was up and that she had a new boyfriend and that I'm not stupid, and she acted shocked that I knew. Part of me would like to have a civilized convo about it when I hadn't been drinking. No, I don't have a drinking problem. I was on vacation. I'm just unsure whether it would be a good idea to revisit the situation, as I'm sure she's angrier than ever now. I'm also unsure whether I feel the lawyer's advice isn't something I want to do because I still have feelings for her. All of this is very confusing. I've been doing very well otherwise, working on myself, have adjusted to being alone and haven't had any contact with her. She's also posted on social media about how much of a piece of crap I am for getting a lawyer, and her friends reposted it. I have since removed all of those people from my social media as I don't really need the negativity in my life, as I have never said anything nasty about her to anyone or went low enough to bash her via social media. Most people don't know beside family. Sometimes it's difficult to think properly with feelings involved. I know I should have ditched them long ago, but they come and go and you second guess yourself. I don't have many friends where I live, and it's a topic most people don't want to discuss anyway, so YouTube has been a great help to speak my mind. My comment: you're not moving on and you're stalling. You need to divorce and move forward. As hard as it seems, you register 0 on her care meter. It's just how it is. You've put this woman on a pedestal. Kick her off. She is nothing special, just an everyday cheater that has no conscience. Go find yourself a woman that cares about you.